Friends, in just a few moments, we are going to be in the service for Mrs. Elaine, Becker, Friedman. On behalf of the family, I want to thank everybody for joining us here in the chapel. I also want to thank those of us who are joining on the live stream. Just a gentle reminder, if anybody does have a cell phone, please take a moment to make sure it is in the silent mode or even off, perhaps. Officiating our service today is Rabbi James Gordon.
I'm going to begin by reciting a series of psalms written by King David, collection in his book of Psalms, Sefer Tehillim, in Hebrew and then in English. And then when we get to the third psalm of Psalm 23, I'll invite everybody to join with me in reading the English translation, which you have in the inside of your pamphlets. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach bi'atzat reshaim uvderech ha'ta'im lo amad uvmoshav leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torat Adonai chavtso uvtorato yegeh yomam v'layla v'haya ke'et shatul al palgei mayim asher piryo yitain be'ito v'alehu lo yibol v'chol asher yatzliach lo chen harishaim ki im kamotz asher tidfenu ruach Al kain lo yakumu rishaim ba'mishpat v'chata'im ba'dat tzadikim ki odei Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rishaim toved. Happy is the person who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night. And they will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaves will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. Tehillim Tedvav, chapter 15 of the book of Psalms. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai mi yagur b'ohalecha, mi yishkon behar kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo. Lo ragal al lishono, lo asa l're'ehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al kirovo. Nivze be'inav nimas, v'et yirei Adonai yichabed. Nishpa li'ara v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan b'neshach, v'shochad al naki lo lakach, ose'ela lo yimot le'olam. Mizmor leDavid, a song of David. Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain? One who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from the heart, who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor cast disgrace toward a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully even to the personal hurt, and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest, nor takes a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. Tehillim Chaf Gimel, Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bin odesha yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara, ki ata imadi, shiftecha umish'antecha hema yinachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, Dishanta v'Hashemen roshi kosi revaya. Achto v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shafti beveit Adonai li'orach yamim. Please join with me in reading the English translation, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm now going to chant the Eshet Chayil, and that is a poem describing the ideal traditional Jewish woman at the time of King Solomon. In addition to being a king, Solomon was also a very moving poet, just like his father David. And this is an acrostic describing the ideal traditional woman, and I'm going to translate key verses, and I think you'll see how readily applicable they are to the life and lifestyle led by Elaine Becker Friedman. Eshet Chayil mimtza verachok mipnim mimichra batach balev bala v'shalal lo yachsar gimelatu tov velora kol yemei chayeh darshat semer ufishtim vatas bechefetz kapeha hayta kioniot socher mimerchak tavi lachma vatakom bio laila vatiten teref leveta v'chok linaroteha zamimasa devetikachehu mi pricha pe'anatakarem chagravias matneha vatametzroteha tamakitov sachra lo yichbe balayla nehira yadeha shilcha vakishor v'chapeh tamchu falach kapa parsaliani ve'yadeha shilcha laevyon lo tira leveta mishaleg kichol beita lavu shanim marvadim astala shesh viar gaman levusha noda basharim bala bishiv doim ziknei aretz sadin astavatim kor vachagor natna laknani ozve hadar levusha vatischak leyom acharon piha padcha b'chachma v'torat chesed al lishona tzofia halichot beita v'lechem atzlu lo tochel kamu vaneha vayashruha bala vayehalila rabot banot asu chayil v'atalit al kulana sheker achein v'hevel hayofi isha yirat Adonai hi titalal tenula mi priyada v'haleluha v'sharim maseha. Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor who can find far beyond pearls, is her worth. Her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, and he shall lack for nothing. She bestows good upon him and never harm all the days of her life. She spreads out her palm to the poor and extends her hands to the destitute. Strength and splendor are her raiment. She cheerfully awaits the last day. Her mouth is opened with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She oversees the ways of her household and partakes not of the bread of laziness. Her children arise and they praise her, her husband, and he lauds her. Many daughters have accomplished well, but you surpass them all. Grace is false and beauty is vain. A woman in awe of God, she should be praised. Give her the fruits of her own hand, and let her deeds praise her in the gathering places. I'd like to call upon Shali at this time.
Thank you for all coming, especially everyone who traveled from out of town in this freezing holiday time. My mom always loved to party, and seeing everyone here would make her so happy. I know my mom was 99 years old, Even if she was 100, I would seriously, selfishly keep her here. She was a huge part of my entire life. It is ironic she passed the same year as Queen Elizabeth, who she adored, both being very independent and strong women. My mom was a wonderful mother. She never argued except during our dinners out, when she would insist and scream if she did not pay, always wanting to take care of us. In her early years, Mom was a radio announcer in Aurora, then taught drama in Chicago on Michigan Avenue in the Fine Arts Building. She met Jack, her husband, my father of 77 years, at a GI dance in Chicago. She continued her passion to teach and direct theater after their marriage. Those days, she loved driving in convertibles, especially a 1975 Eldorado convertible, which I unfortunately smashed. Mom was an unconventional mother, always allowing me to pursue my adventures. She drove me daily to stables in Elgin and Morton Grove, returning a few hours later with my lunch. She would write school excuses so I could get out of school early and ride horses almost daily. She allowed me more than 20 different dogs. Some of these dogs were mean that bit a lot. Les Schaefer, Dr. Schaefer, my childhood friend here, would jump up and down on my parents' bed almost daily. Mom thought he would hit his head on the ceiling and get brain damage, but instead he became a brain surgeon. Mom never wanted to interfere with our fun. She called the dean in Boulder, Colorado, at the University of Colorado, so I could gain admittance after the deadline even. She once drove my car back to Colorado after I smashed it, so I wouldn't miss class. She visited me in hospitals in Colorado and California, where I had knee issues. She even went with me to my classes in California to carry my books and push a wheelchair for me. My mom was always proud of my accomplishments. She never failed to miss a Burger King or Popeye's grand opening. She always invited her friends and family to attend. She loved passing out Burger King and Popeye's coupons, proud of her children's success. Mom loved to travel, play poker with both men and women, especially in Vegas, and she loved her Fannie Mae candies. She did all the family investing. That's probably how I took up municipal bonds. She chartered Ort and directed theater at the Lincolnwood Jewish Congregation. She loved family and celebrating together. Once on her birthday dinner in Morton's, she went into the kitchen just to complain to the chef that he was not serving the prime meat she ordered. Rabbi Gordon met my mother at the Clarion Nursing Home in Buffalo Grove, where for 12 years my mom would do a daily visit to her sister Miriam, who had a debilitating stroke. Rabbi calls my mom very opinionated, but as you know, you always knew my mother's thoughts and feelings. She was never afraid to express them, and she let you know. In her later years, when my dad's health was failing, we hired Peel to help. Every week, my mom told him this was his last week and don't come back next week. But his gentle and caring personality would keep him with our family until he and John became her caretaker, allowing her to stay in her home of 67 and a half years in Lincolnwood. Most recent, she said, "I want to go home," not realizing she was in her beloved home. I asked her last September what she wanted for her birthday. She replied, "I want my family. Now may she rest in peace with Jack, Marlene, Dave, and Miriam, and all her loved ones. Some people say I was a good son. My reply is I had a fantastic mom. I love her, and I will miss her, Mom."
Please, yeah. We'd like to call upon Dr. Schaefer.
What do you call Shelley's mother when you're 8 years old? You call her Mrs. Friedman. I probably spent as much time at her home and Shelley's home as I did at my own home in those days, and she was always extremely welcoming and just a very special person. She even covered for me when I was supposed to be at home, as my mother covered for Shelley when he was supposed to be at his home. She was a real stand-up lady. There's no question about it. When Shelley was starting out in his Burger King, she was so incredibly proud of him. And whenever we were there with my wife and my kids, she always made sure kids had crowns, everybody was happy, everybody was comfortable. She really took a personal interest in me and my family at all times, and this I thought was very, very special. Shelley was getting ready to go off to college, and his mother and his father asked me a small favor. And the favor was, would I go with Shelley in a van, with a motorcycle in the van, and drive with him to Colorado? And this shows you how she cultivated this friendship in myself that was very, very special. And of course I went. It was an experience we both shared for a very long time. In later years, whenever I would visit Elaine at her home or meet for dinner with Shelley and Debbie, my wife would often come. She always cared about myself, my family. She was never selfish. She was always giving and just very special in that way. I will always value, remember, and appreciate this exceptional woman who always considered the other people, the other person, and as we age, we get very self-consumed, but she never did. She always was concerned about myself, my family, never self-consumed as a lot of people get as they get older. So I will really miss my old friend, Mrs. Friedman. May her memory be a blessing.
In addition to some personal insights, after knowing her too, Mrs. Friedman, I also want to put a frame around it through a Jewish text. And I'm going to just cite from the Talmud. It describes a special relationship that two great rabbinic scholars had with one another, one whose name was Rabbi Eliezer and the other Rabbi Yochanan. And in addition to their tremendous levels of scholarship, we learn about Rabbi Eliezer that he was a man of very modest means, that he lived really in a small one-room type of home with no windows. Rabbi Yochanan is described as a shufra, as a beautiful, a handsome man, like the name Shapiro, the woman's name Shifra as well. One time when Rabbi Eliezer was approaching the end stages of his life, his friend Rabbi Yochanan went to visit him. And we learned that he walked into this dark room, no windows, and he was not able to see anything until he literally rolled up his sleeves, bared his forearm, and light then emanated from it. And he noticed that his friend was crying. And he asked the obvious question, "Why are you crying?" And then he did not get an answer right away from Rabbi Eliezer, so he began to probe at individual reasons. Each one he knew was not logical, and he was met once again with silence. He said, "Are you crying because you feel you did not learn enough? You did not study enough Torah during the course of your lifetime?" Met with silence and knowing that this was not true, he continued his inquiry. Imishu mizonai, is it because you feel you did not earn enough money and you did not support your family in the way you wished? And he knew that he tried and he did support his family. And so he continued then, Rabbi Yochanan, his inquiry. Mishum bana, is it because you feel you did not have enough children? And he knew that he did feel that he had enough children. So finally then, Rabbi Eliezer, he broke his silence and he said the following, Lahai shufra debal be'afrei kabachina. I am crying because I know that one day this shufra, referring to his friend Rabbi Yochanan, one day this beautiful person, this tall, handsome, strong man with beautiful virtues, I know that one day he too will pass away and he will be buried in the earth. That is why I am crying. And the response given by Rabbi Eliezer was, this makes sense why you are crying. And these two giants of Jewish scholarship, they wept together. We learn many important lessons from this passage in the Talmud. One is that nobody is immortal. No matter how strong we are, no matter how valuable we may be to others, we are all mortal, and we all eventually pass away. Like Rabbi Yochanan in the Talmud, Mrs. Elaine Friedman was a shufra'ah, a beautiful woman, both physically, but more importantly, spiritually and internally, as described really by Shelley and by Dr. Schaefer. And her life was devoted to the care of others. Like Rabbi Yochanan, who brought light into this dark room, Elaine Friedman also brought great light into the lives of everyone with whom she came into contact, as we saw really from Shelley and Dr. Schaefer. She was the adored daughter of William, Bill, and Anna Becker, both of blessed memory, who were both immigrants to the United States from the Russia-Poland area. Elaine was extremely close with her mother, and when her mother passed away at the young age of 59, Elaine felt a tremendous loss. Elaine was raised on Chicago's West Side, and she graduated from the John Marshall High School. She's predeceased by her brother Dave, and I know that it means a lot to Shelley and family that Dave's wife, Herda, and their daughters, Dana and Anna, are both here and made a special effort to fly in to be here. And I know that I was told by Shell what a close relationship Elaine shared with her younger brother. And when Dave passed away unexpectedly about 3 years ago, this really shook her up quite a bit. And in fact, Shell really talked about how she kind of began to slide in her own health and deteriorate once he had passed away. And they were close with each other throughout their lives, and more in the recent years, sharing weekly telephone conversations with one another. From a personal perspective, as Shell pointed out, I could see how close she was with the other sibling, with Miriam, who was a resident at what was known then as the Claremont and now the Symphony of Buffalo Grove, where I have served as a chaplain for over 2 decades. And Elaine was there really, if not every day, just about every day. And I was there quite often too, and we shared many conversations together. Now, I know Shell used the word opinionated, and I may have used that word, and sometimes it has a negative connotation. But I used it in a positive way, meaning she had her convictions, she had her beliefs, she had her thoughts, but most importantly, she respected other people, including me, who didn't necessarily always share her opinion on matters. So I think it's a very positive attribute that you have the confidence to articulate and express the way that you feel. And I found Elaine just to be a very loving, sincere, and caring person. And you have to remember that going from Lincolnwood to Buffalo Grove, even for people like me who does it all the time, is not a big deal. But for many people, this is, the boondocks way out there. And to do it on a almost daily basis, this really showed a love and commitment that Elaine had towards her sister to oversee the care and also to make sure that there was this personal connection. And I can tell you how much it meant to Miriam to have this. And I had many conversations during this time with Elaine, and I also had some conversations with Jack, as I know that he was far more reserved than Elaine was. And as Shell pointed out, she was, Elaine, the loving and devoted wife of Jack for many, many years until he passed away now over 9 years ago. At the urging of her mother, Elaine, who at that time wanted to be, as Shelley described, a career goal, she went to a dance for eligible military men, and that's where, as Shell pointed out, she met Jack. And they enjoyed each other's company. In addition to raising their beautiful family, they also enjoyed world travel. Their destinations included Israel, Hong Kong, and Europe. And Elaine and Jack especially enjoyed hosting their family every Friday night for a Shabbat, a Sabbath dinner. Longtime residents of Lincolnwood, Elaine lived in their family home for over 60 years. Elaine, Jack, and family were longtime members of Lincolnwood Jewish Congregation. Another connection I had with them because I served as the assistant rabbi there for 8 years and remained very close with their rabbi, Rabbi Joel Lehrfield. Elaine was a loving and devoted mother of Shelley and Debbie Friedman, and you heard of what she did and what the parents did for their children, and also the loving and devoted mother of Marlene of blessed memory, who, as Shelley pointed out to me, passed away exactly 2 years ago yesterday. Along with Jack, Elaine's top priority was her family, as Shelley beautifully and expanded on. Elaine had this great sense of fashion, as you'll see in the photos, and as anybody knew, and she took great pride in how she looked. She loved wearing hats and also high heels, and always made sure that her hair was done. Very kind and caring people, Elaine and Jack were fine exemplars for their children. And as Shelley pointed out, Elaine was extremely proud of her children, celebrating their many achievements in life and also being very supportive of them, as then Shelley pointed out. I thought what a nice story that if you said it, I don't remember, it's worth repeating, that we know that Elaine was a great orator, starting her career really in radio, and she was very articulate, very bright, and could be very persuasive. I mean, because this is a one-in-the-kind story, is that Shelley decided really after the deadline that he really wanted to go to the University of Colorado while his grades were stellar and were reason enough to accept them. He applied past the deadline. But then Elaine stepped up, called the dean, and she persuaded him to make an exception and accept Shelley as a student. She also then got into a discussion with him, found out that he also was a lover of horses, and that didn't hurt it either to get Shelley into the school, even though it was past the deadline of accepting applications. There is the old saying in English of what goes around comes around, or some say what comes around goes around. I know that Shelley gave really a tribute to the caregivers, to Pio and John, which they really deserve that. It's really because of Shelley and his leadership and Debbie and family that he was able and she was able to live in her home throughout her life, as well as Jack. The easy thing to do is really make sure that somebody is well cared for, usually in a nursing home, which is an option and the right option for many families. But I always believe is that you follow then the desires of the person who is sick, especially a parent, and that was clearly what she wanted in the care. And Shelley, Debbie, and family made sure that the proper care and caregivers were hired, were kept on, were treated well, so that they would maintain this for over the course of 15 plus years, to make sure that there was this loving and very respectful care given to both parents, to Jack and Elaine. In Hebrew, we have two related terms with similar pronunciations, but slightly different pronunciations, or different spellings. One is arichut yamim, with the letter aleph, arichut, which means length of days or years. And then the same word with a guttural pronunciation of arichut yamim, with the letter ayin, which is the quality of days, the quality of life. Blessed with longevity, Elaine, we know, lived to be 99 plus years. And that's her longevity. But now the arichut in terms of the quality. Blessed with Jack, Shelley, Debbie, Marlene, family, and friends, Elaine had an extremely meaningful, high-quality life. And unfortunately, over the last 2.5 years, her health had deteriorated significantly. But even at that stage, she was provided the highest quality of life. And we know that Elaine, in addition to her immediate family, how close she was with her cousins and nieces and nephews as well. In addition to her family, Elaine brought great light into the lives of her many friends. As Shelley pointed out, the many activities of playing cards, of gambling, and everything. Very spunky and full of life. Elaine joined going to casinos, shows, music, and the racetrack. She also enjoyed dining with friends and family, and as Shelley pointed out, she had a sweet tooth for Fannie Mae candies. A very bright and talented woman, Elaine received a Bachelor's of Oratory degree in 1943 from the Chicago School of Expression and Dramatic Art. As Shelley pointed out, at one time she worked as a radio announcer. Elaine later taught classes in drama and speech at the Chicago School of Fine Arts. For a short while, she taught students at her own private studio on Touhy Avenue in Lincolnwood. Elaine was a proud Jewish woman who, along with Jack, established and raised their family in what we call a Bayit Ne'eman B'Yisrael, a home imbued with traditional Jewish values. Longtime members of Lincolnwood Jewish congregation, Elaine and Jack ensured that their children had a traditional Jewish education and that Shelley celebrated his bar mitzvah at Lincolnwood Jewish congregation. Active at or with the Lincolnwood Jewish Congregation Sisterhood and the organization, the Zionist organization of ORT, as Shelley pointed out, Elaine donated her talents, her theatrical talents, and directed the plays performed by Lincolnwood Jewish Congregation members for many years. The productions took place in the lower level of the synagogue. There is a poem, and I want to just share the chorus with you, written by Chaim Nachman Bialik, who came to Israel from Europe pre-state and really helped revive Hebrew as a modern language and also then as a literature and poetry as well. And it's called Acharei Moti, after my death, after my passing. Acharei Moti Siptu Kachali. After my death, I want you to eulogize me in the following manner. Haya ish ureu. There was a person, and look, and behold, einenu od. They're no longer here. Kodem zmano meit ha'ish hazeh. This person passed away before their time. V'shirat chayav bi'emsa nifsaka. And the song of their life was abruptly interrupted. V'tsar, tsuras, oi, woe. Od mizmor echad hayalo. This person had one more song in them. V'nei avad hamizmor la'ad, avad la'ad. And behold, this song has been lost forever. At this time, it is our role as Elaine's survivors to ensure her memory and legacy, and we do so by continuing her song of life. One way that we do this is by incorporating into our own lives the many fine midot, virtues, character virtues, by which Elaine led her life. Tehei nishmat Elaine bat William, tzra b'tzra chayim. May the neshama, the soul of Elaine Friedman, be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. If you'd all please rise, I'm going to recite the memorial prayer at this time. El malei rachamim shochein bameromim hamtsehei menucha nechona al kanfei ashchina b'ma'alot kedoshim u'tahorim kezoar harakia masirim et nishmat Elaine bat William shalcha li'olama ba'avur she'anachnu mitpalim bi'ad hazkarat nishmata Began Eden tehei menuchata, lachein bal harachamim yastireha, beseter knafav leolamim, veyitzror bitzrachim nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar amen. O God, full of compassion, you who dwell on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence in the lofty levels of the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the neshama, the soul of Elaine Friedman, who has gone to her world and for whose memory we pray. May her repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her neshama, her soul, in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage, and may she repose on her resting place in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Friends, this concludes our service here at the chapel. Interment will follow immediately at the family plots just down the road at Memorial Park. Memorial contributions in Mrs. Friedman's memory can be made to the American Cancer Society. Following the interment at Memorial Park, the family has invited everybody to a luncheon at Zhivago's just across the street from the cemetery. For those who are joining, a procession will be forming in the parking lot. If you're planning on joining the procession, please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for the inside portion of your windshield, as well as a magnetic flag for the rooftop portion of your vehicle. While in procession, please make sure your bright high beams are on, your hazard lights are on. Please drive as closely as safety permits to the car in front of you. Please use your horn very liberally while in procession, especially while passing through intersections. And finally, please do not talk on your cellular device while in procession. The following individuals have been honored to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you could stand next to Mrs. Freeman's casket: Neil Borkin, Jay Lawrence, Eli Lawrence, Stan Aaron, Michael Krasny, Rob Nardick, and Dr. Les Schaefer. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise as we escort the casket, the family, and the clergy from the chapel.